Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is my second take of the video because I filmed these on my phone. My finger slipped on the phone, and it did that thing where it brings up all your tabs. Golly, I was probably halfway done. Anyway, what I want to be talking... well, I guess it's good. The first video is my first draft, right? But what I wanted to talk about today was kind of how comic books have changed, and particularly me, who hasn't really read X-Men, who doesn't really know anything about the X-Men, looking at the X-Men from an outsider's perspective, only having read these two issues in full length about the X-Men, because I feel like this is a good kind of baseline, and hearing it from somebody who doesn't know much might provide a little bit more insight than somebody who knows more about the X-Men. So what I wanted to talk about was, let me show you this book here. This is X-Men Legends. It came out way back in February, and according to the back, if you read the back, it's a bunch of stories that were never published, and they're canon in the series with superstar artists, kind of like how they did the All-Star series. And it almost seems like it's an anthology, because I looked at other covers and they swapped out the art teams and everything like that. Not totally sure what it was. I didn't pick up issue 2 because they weren't really pushing all those issues, and I stopped buying comics at the time. But it's a great book, and reading it right off the bat, me not knowing anything about X-Men, I'm invested in it. You get this opening page, you get all these great shots, and you get all this great action, which is kind of what you expect when you get an X-Men book. I mean, you have somebody like Brett Booth on it, you're gonna sell books, especially if you have a decent writer, and this writer is better than decent. This is a good writer for the book. He adds in little twists, he adds in suspenseful moments. He knows how to write a book, and Brett Booth knows dang well how to illustrate one, especially when paired with this colorist. And the difference is, sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's hard for me to repeat myself, especially since this is my second take. But if you compare this book to what's coming out now, which is pretty much what I wanted to tackle, there's a little part here. Let me see if I can find it. It'll be in this guy's meditation session, right? What I wanted to talk about was how, like I said, things have changed, but how kind of things mattered differently. So if you see right here, it says Captain Marvel 1995 is what's being referred to in this place here. And later in the book, you have that same subtitle about it referring to Captain Marvel #3 from 1995. And when you think about that, you think, well, that comic book is almost 30 years old now, and this thing is referring to it. Now, granted, this is stuff that should have been published 20 years ago, according to the editor, but that's how much of an impact that book had. And everybody always talks about the 90s. There's 30 years, and they're still talking about the 90s. They're talking about the artwork, and they're very much talking about this artwork. Mitch Gerrard's, whenever there was that whole thing with the Russian artist, about the Russian artist saying Donny Cates shouldn't waste 3 or 4 pages on a static headshot, which he shouldn't. You had Mitch Gerrard's come out and say, like, this whole spectacle over story thing is such 90s bullcrap. And I'm like, from a guy who traces everything, he sure is speaking pretty loud, because this is spectacle, right? I mean, look at this. He's so built, he's so round, that his lats and his traps and his pecs form a circle. You could make a cookie out of this, a round cookie out of this guy's upper body with the way that he's built. You could put Wolverine's bicep next to his head and they'd be the same size. Yeah, it's big. But when I read this story, picking it up, reading it, never having read an X-Men book ever, it was a good story. It explained decently what was happening with the characters and who the characters were, just by way of them acting. Whenever you look at Magneto having all this power, he's a powerful guy. He's the villain. Wow. Did they have to tell me that? No. They just showed it, and I'm really going to tear this book, huh? Cyclops is the cool leader, right? He's back here, and they're training. They say that they're training, but you know that they're training. Look at how joyous they are. Look at the different statures of the character. Wolverine, Psylocke, and Bandito over here. I forgot his name. are trudging through the sewers. Why? Because they're the edgy characters. They're the cool characters, right? They're expressing all of these things by way of illustration and storytelling. So you can't tell me that with all these word balloons, all these bubbles, all these captions, all this everything, that this is spectacle over story. How can you tell me that? Now, again, I haven't read much of the X-Men, so I'm coming from a position of ignorance. But I guarantee you that if this story sucked, then it wouldn't be talked about nearly as much, and it would be mainly Jim Lee's art rather than Claremont's writing that would be talked about. So then you get to today. And so I'm an X-Men fan. No, I'm not. Well, okay, this is a better way to word it. Let's say I'm going to the store, I have money to spend, and I'm like, I want to get into the X series. I want to see if it's worth it. I'm going to go to the X series. What's happening right now? The X-Men's Hellfire Gala, which is a fashion show with all these guys, these cool-looking dudes with these cool-looking costumes, at a mansion with Conan O'Brien and Eminem, apparently. A couple other rappers. I don't know who else is there. I saw that they posted all those invites. And they're like in corners. That's besides the point. But that's what you're going to get if you go to the store and you pick up an X-Men book for $5-6, right? And I'm like, so what's going to be the incentive for me to come back? Whenever I pick up X-Men Legends, this book that isn't in continuity, that everybody's forgetting about because it doesn't matter, which is kind of the problem, right? I can flip to a random page like I just did now, and you get this spectacular, beautiful, gorgeous, powerful artwork, all these adjectives. You could put all of these adjectives on this art, add more, and it would still work. You wouldn't be exaggerating. Because you have all these literal power, you have strong individuals physically, and you have spectacular people spectacularly showing off their strength in stuff like this, where they just kind of do it casually and everybody falls to the ground with good writing, with little twists here and there. But then you have the gala, and I haven't read it because I can't afford to read that. But I'm willing to bet that if we were to take X-Men #1, which I granted it's a legendary issue, right? And you were to date it with the Hellfire Gala, and let's talk about the Hellfire Gala in like 5 years, right? Who's gonna look back at the Hellfire Gala and be like, man, I wish they did something like that again. I wish that we got that art team and that writing team. I wish we got them back on X-Men today. Like, that was a phenomenal run. That was the greatest run. That was on par with what happened in the 90s with the X-Men. Who's going to be saying that? Who's even going to be talking about it? Because we can't see the sales right now, but I can almost guarantee you that they're not nearly as high as you'd expect an X event to be, right? If you look at the Batman sales, they were only in 80, 90, maybe 100,000 on good issues. I mean, sales have just been falling. And these writers write these books like they don't care, like they don't even know the dang characters, right? Again, you had Wolverine in the Bandito and Psylocke in the sewers. Everybody's gonna hate me for calling him that, but because they were edgy. And then you had Cyclops, he was at head command because he's the leader. And you had all those other characters just showing their character by way of their posture, by way of their illustrations. But then you have it now, and they're all interchangeable from the way that it looks, from the way that I see it, right? From my perspective, from somebody who doesn't know the characters any better. And it's just kind of sad, that stuff like this mattered so much that it's talked about to this day. But yet you have stuff like this that's almost as good in terms of the writing, in terms of the story. Oh, look, their beams. It almost crosses. In terms of the writing, the illustration, the story, you have somebody like Brett Booth on it. You have this colorist on it. And it's not being treated with half the respect it deserves. Because the editors don't care. Somebody doesn't care. Somebody in the chain of command doesn't care about these things, and yet could be making so much money off of books like this if they made it the main line. I mean, this isn't the main line, and they're putting this superstar art team on it. You're seriously gonna put Brett Booth on a sideline book? You're gonna put him on the bench? I mean, what if Brett Booth illustrated the Hellfire Gala? It would be a waste of his talent, but it would be an incentive to buy. I mean, you get books right now, and they're just not half of what they used to be. And everybody always says that, like, this isn't half of what it used to be. You have people like Mitch Garrett saying the bull crap of what spectacle over story, and which he's wrong. And when you look at some of the Image comics, okay, then you could start making that argument. But even so, the artwork sold, things got done. And there are a lot of things that the 90s needed to improve on, but there are a lot of tips that we can take from that. There are a lot of lessons that we can learn and apply to today's stuff that writers just aren't. You look at the writers at Marvel, and they're not respecting the characters' histories. They're not respecting themselves with the art that they're putting out. And anytime you criticize, anytime you have any sort of critique, they kind of label you as a this or a that. You can't really do that anymore. I mean, that one Russian artist who's I've heard is pretty good, critique Donny Cates just over a couple pages. He didn't say anything nasty. He didn't say anything very rude. He just said, hey man, I mean, you only have about 20 pages of a comic book. Why waste a quarter of them on a front-facing headshot that barely changes? That's not really spectacle over story. That's just you. If you're a good storyteller, do you really need 4 pages of that? I feel like there's a lot of problems whenever it comes to some of these storytellers, whenever they can't tell a good story. So, yeah, I mean, reading this makes me want to read more X-Men, but reading the Gala, I really think that it would make me regret buying the Gala and thinking, man, I wish I could have saved my $5 today, because I could probably use that tomorrow for something else, right? And that's the thing. You don't want people to think that. That's not how you sell things. I don't know. That's pretty much all I have to say. I just really care about this stuff because it's such a great amalgamation of things. I mean, y'all know how deeply I think about this stuff just from my past videos alone. I might not be able to articulate it, but I'm sure by now you guys can kind of figure it out. And so, yeah, I just feel like they need to make more comic books like this, because this actually got me invested. I mean, let me see. Where is it? One of these pages that I turned to. And also, one more thing. The 90s were over the top. Nobody's going to argue that, right? But if you find a balance in it, I feel like Brett Booth has really been able to channel the spirit of the 90s without completely jumping the shark like they did back then, where they were really pushing the limits. Like, I feel like he found a really good balance, because if you look at Cable here, it's almost reminiscent of Greg Capullo's Cable, where Cable had bazookas, long rifles, knives, bombs, like you name it, he had it on him. He kind of almost looks like that here. He has the straps, he has all the 90s memorabilia, he has a couple weapons on his back, he's big, but it's like, it's balanced. It doesn't look so crazy and wacky that it wouldn't work. It looks just crazy enough that it works. You know what I mean? And so I feel like if we can learn from the past, then we can make the present better. I mean, it's simple history, right? That's the whole point of history, is that you can make things better, you can improve upon it, but instead everybody just wants to have one two-dimensional thought process on the whole thing, that it's this or that, instead of taking ideas from it and learning from it. So, yeah, here's the page. It's this page right here, because he's hitchhiking on this page, and you have this little thing where it's like, oh, it's a car. Oh, no, it's not a car. What's that? You flip the page. When I flipped to this page, I was like, oh, wow, like, that's cool. You weren't expecting that. It's a good page turner. Just simple little writing techniques like that can make your story so much better. Just if you put something like this on the page turn, right? Keep it a secret until they turn the page, so that way they can reveal it. You see all these things that you can get as a writer if you're good. I haven't read any Kate stuff, but I feel like he's the kind of guy that would write a Captain America fight scene and make Captain America lose his shield because he's too overpowered with his shield. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also gods, so that's kind of your fault. You see, humans wouldn't make good gods. They would kind of suck at it, because if you watch the Marvel movies, Captain America always loses his shield. I'm like, why are you making this guy, whose whole thing is the shield, lose the shield? He just turns into a boxer or a kickboxer or a UFC fighter at that point. And then it's like, well, that's just interchangeable. Any of the characters could do that. Or like whenever Bucky doesn't utilize it. I'm going on a writing rampage right now. But always remember that whenever you're writing a book, you're God. So don't say anything can't happen. It's only about your writing ability. Anyway, Yeah, so make your stuff matter. If you don't like stuff, it probably doesn't matter, and the writers probably don't treat it like it matters. And they probably won't talk about it in 30 years like they do this. And sure, not everybody's gonna do this, but you could try. I'd say that's a pretty good thing if this works. So yeah, that's the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Go follow my Instagram where I'm gonna post art that's greater than Jim Lee's and greater than Brett Booth's combined. I'm the greatest artist on the planet. You just haven't figured it out yet. So yeah, go follow my Instagram. It's BatOtter157. I'm gonna upload more videos probably soon. I don't know. I'll do it sometime. You know me. I'll see you later.